I can start recording. Okay, I'm recording. So at least if we're not going to be able to broadcast, we can just upload it later, so it's not so bad. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. So sorry, Joe. Sorry about that once again. And I guess we should get that information back on for Jack, because Jack's asked the question. We just started, but we were halfway through the answer. I'll go ahead and read it out again, and we kind of like replay the initial part where Jack, so congratulations for the kids. For we don't know if it's a baby boy or baby girl, but we're excited for you, for the both of you, for the couple. So we're excited for that and hope to see you guys soon. You have gone and asked us about if there are any additional tree folders for your dairy goat system. You already currently have Mombasa, Moringa, pigeon peas, ciruelas, chaya, leucaenas, gliricidias. You've gone on to say prickly pears does not work well, and we have not yet been able to source the cassia manjum. And he would love to hear more about Felipe's new sheep project. And what I'd like to say, Jack, is that I appreciate that your Mexican sunflowers didn't come through so well initially. And I do appreciate you said, tree folders, but, I do want to come back to the Mexican sunflowers. If you haven't had success in the first time around, maybe try again with a little bit of more love. Let's be patient for the second year, second rain season, see if it thickens up. And also, maybe try again with a little bit more love, a little manure, a little irrigation if needs, something like that. Give it a bit of care, because I do greatly believe in this as, to be, a main ally, it could account for, half of your feed, so powerful. I mean, every day I love it more. Every day I discover that I don't have enough Mexican sunflowers in my life. Lately with the chicken feed, it's accounting for a great deal of that. It's accounting for a great deal of all the cow feed here. And it's even accounting partly for some of the horse feed. And then it's accounting for all, feeding the soil. And I'm sure I've seen, in goats, I've seen in many other systems, then they make very good use of this goat, of this material, the goats as well. So I would just say, we know it can be a bit slow in the first year. Be patient with it, or even try again with a little bit of more love, the Mexican sunflowers. I'll highly encourage you to, keep on trying, because it's got the power to produce, in dire situations, even though initially it might be a little bit slow on that. So I'd just like to leave that message as the Mexican sunflower still could be a main ally, even though it hasn't gone well so far for you, Jack.
I want to add a couple more species here to the list, which I think are pretty interesting. One is Cratylia. I don't have personal experience with it, but I've talked with quite a few people recently who have been highly recommend this species. It's a legume and it's pretty vigorous. I'm going to spell it out. It's Cratylia with Y, so Cratylia, right? Cratylia are there are a few species. The one that there's Cratylia argentea, which is one which I think people use the most. So it's supposed to be very good and very vigorous. And another one, I like the species that you listed, right? Mombasa, Moringa, pigeon pea, Cirella, Chaya, Leucaena, and Gliricidia. There is what's the name of that species called Prosopis in English? Let me just remember. There's this one, and Cassava. Cassava is an important one that we very often forget, right? Although it's not going to be used for direct for grazing, but it is a great plant for you to have to produce silage or hay from it. Especially if you can get your hands on wild varieties of cassava, the ones that are used to make flour instead of being used to cook. They're very vigorous. They love poor soils, and they will produce a highly nutritious feed for your animals. The ones that I was trying to remember, the one that's called Prosopis, it's Mesquite, right? That's the one, Mesquite. I think we had talked to Jack about it during one of our calls, but this one is very good. Not exactly for the leaves, but for the pods. Right? The pods are highly nutritious and just very valuable to animals, right? Gennaro will be planting some of that, right, Gennaro, for a horse system. Horses absolutely love the pods of mesquite. So that's definitely 3 species that I'd like to bring attention to. So Cratylia, if you can find it around your region, Cassava, and mesquite. So these are the ones that I would add to the list. Yeah, exactly.
Mesquite is algaroba. Nice.
Exactly.
For people in Brazil, it's algaroba. So what about sweet potatoes? How do they, because we've been looking into this for, for dairy, for the cow system, both the aerial leafage and also, possibilities of shredding the actual potato, because we need energy, we need carbohydrates and things like that as well.
I wonder if the leaves are, I don't know about the leaves, because you said that for horses they're highly toxic, right? I don't know if for cows they're fine.
Yes. Well, I've been discussing with some friends and they've indicated that it would be fine. And but I think what we're more looking at are the actual potatoes, the possibilities of actually shredding the actual potatoes. The leaves, I know that if you dehydrate, they become, a little bit more less aggressive.
Yeah, maybe for hay production, right?
Hay production. And I mean, obviously I love it for the organic matter and for covering the soil and for the system as a whole. But do you think that, do you know anything about this, Philippe, about the potato? Do you shred the potato,
Yeah, I think you can use it. I think you can use it, both sweet potatoes, also cassava is used, squash. People use it a lot to substitute corn in the diet, to supply energy. I remember this species, the one that I was talking to you about, Gennaro, the ones that people use for horses in the Northeast, which is a close relative to the sweet potato, but it's got the leaves are very very nutritious and edible. I'm trying to find out the name here. I don't remember the name. I'm gonna try to find out the exact species so that I can say it here. Let's see.
Nice. Well, anyway, Jack as well on his way.
There's cotton. Cotton is a good one as well. Cotton leaves, they're very nutritious. And
Mulberry, how do you say it? Mulberry, Morus.
Oh, mulberries. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yes.
That's a good one. Well remembered.
Frenzy here for the horse system now. I'm worried about not overdoing it, but I am going, ordering a few thousand seedlings on that for because I saw it in Pete Canary's house when he had the mulberries. He had almost like a fence, like a live fence of it. He's planted it. I believe I understood it like it was a fence because it was just a big wall of it. I was quite inspired about that as well.
Just remember the name. It's Jitirana.
Organic matter and
so this species, the scientific name is Ipomoea purpurea, right? So this one is supposedly a species, a close relative to the sweet potato. Right, the sweet potato is Ipomoea batatas. This one is Ipomoea purpurea. It's supposedly highly nutritious and palatable to even to horses. So this is something to look for. And then there are the species of Clitoria. So there are many. Clitoria is a genus of legumes. Most of them are vines, and they're also highly nutritious. There's one of them which is in Brazil. It's called Cunhã, and it's considered the tropical alfalfa because it is so nutritious. So, and it grows very well in the northeast. I'm gonna try to get the exact name. Cunhã, Clitoria.
Yeah.
Clitoria ternatea. I'm gonna write these things down so that because then we can write the names down in YouTube. You know, when we post the video in YouTube, we can put it in the description so that people can actually remember it. Let me just open a text here so that I write down.
Yeah.
So let's list the species that we mentioned: mesquite, cassava, of course. What else? So Cunhã, mulberry,
Mexican sunflowers coming back to our main ally.
Mexican sunflower, Jitirana, which is the potato relative. There's one more that I mentioned because I said mesquite, cassava, and in the very beginning, what was the third one that I mentioned?
Algaroba? Is that?
Yeah, that's mesquite.
That's mesquite, right?
It will come back to me. We can move on, and it will soon come back to me.
All right.
Oh yeah, I remember. It's Cratylia. There you go. Okay, good. So that's a pretty good list. We got a list of another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 species, and then there's the Stylozanthes, of course, which is another good one.
For the pastures.
Cool.
So we have another question from Richie D. Nice one, Richie. Can I move on to that?
Yeah, go on. Let me just answer Jack as he asked about the sheep project.
Yes.
That project is still in the standby because we are waiting for the owners of the property are waiting for the bank because of loans and things like that. So it's still something that's in the oven. But as soon as there's an update and as soon as the project is accepted and the credit is released, I'm gonna definitely be posting some updates. So keep in tune for that, but it's still gonna be a few months probably because before we have an update on that. So Richie D said, hi, Richie here, new to the group. Question, all the Agroforestry Academy videos I've seen, the projects were on flat land. Do you have any general recommendations for systems on hillsides? That's a pretty good question. We do the system itself, the design, it won't change much, the principles, but of course you will have to adapt the logistics of implementation, and also the direction of planting will be a lot more important in the hillsides, both due to preventing erosion, of course, and due to sunlight. So when you're working on a hillside, it makes a very big difference which side your hill is facing, right? So if it's a north facing hill, if it is a west or a east or a south facing hill, we who are in the southern hemisphere, if you have a northern facing slope, you will receive a lot more sunlight than if you have a south facing slope. So this is something you have to consider when planning. Try to design your rows so that you get the most of sunlight into your system. But at the same time, whenever you can, you should be working on contour lines to avoid, to reduce erosion. If you're working with a tractor, for example, upwards the hill, you can get quite a lot of erosion unless you do a very good job of covering your soil very quickly with organic matter and with living plants, right? You need to get that soil very well structured. So, depending on the size of the hill, one idea is actually to build terraces every certain distance, every 50 meters or 100 meters, do some contour lines and infiltration channels to slow down the water and so that the water can infiltrate. And you reduce, that's a way to immediately reduce erosion until your system actually, the plants are well established and you have a good soil structure with the plant's roots preventing erosion. So I think the general recommendation that I have to give is this: be very careful about erosion, and of course, the more steep the slope is, the more careful you have to be, especially because the steeper it gets, the harder it is to work on contour lines. So if it's a very steep slope, you cannot work on contour lines because your tractor will just fall off. So you really have to be very careful with that. And but the design of the system is the same. You're just gonna have to pay extra attention to that. Make sure you have a fast cover crop. This is very important. So if you're working on a plain land and your cover crop doesn't cover the soil so fast, it's not so bad. If you are on a slope and you don't have a fast coverage of leaves and structuring of roots in the soil, you will lose a lot of soil. So yeah, pay extra attention to that. That's the advice I have to give.
Yeah, well said. Covered quite a bit, but you see, so pay special attention to this. What is the angle that your tractor can work? So obviously, be attentive to that. Hand tractors, small machines, that if you're on a slope and you're working sideways, this could tilt and things like that. Also, I mean, this is a place here, maybe not your place, but what I find here, because obviously in the top of the hills, we have a lot of soil being washed down and everything. So, where it's nice and flat at the top, I got better soil than, where it steeps down, where I've already had lots of my soil washed off. And it's left with a little bit of gravel and not so much soil. So do appreciate the quality of the soil and the ambition of your project there. In my situation here, obviously it was a learning curve, or I was planting, the same kind of crops as the top. I was planting on the sides, and it was very clear to me that it's different soil, different quality. So I've now gone back and basically I'm focused on building soil. I'm focusing on service crops. For a few years, in order for me to have enough structure so that I could then in the future plant more demanding crops. So in the recent now lately I have planted the mucunas, which are the black velvet beans. I have planted the pigeon peas and the Mexican sunflowers, and I've let it all seed. I've let it all seed, go a bit wild, and it's a bit crazy that, but I really need to build up a lot more structure, a lot more soil, a lot more organic matter before this part of my land actually becomes has enough structure and soil and becomes fertile enough for me to go back and plant some more demanding crops. So be realistic about, you know, what situation your slope is, and if need be, prepare the soil to plant, you know, in years to come. You know, something that you can very quickly do if you have somewhere else to plant for now, and you can, you know, throw some seeds there while you're not working. Get that land working. If you've got plans, you know, maybe you haven't got the arms, legs to plant now, but you've got this hill, you acknowledge that, you know, it's a little bit weaker, it's got less soil, throw some seeds down and let that work for a few years, you know, so that when you're ready, when you do have the gas to go there and work, you've already built something there.
Cool. Richie just joined, so that's welcome, Richie. Can you hear us well? We were answering your question at this exact moment.
Can I just add a little bit there?
Of course, Jill, please.
I've got quite a steep place, and after I talked to you last time, we talked very briefly on my first meeting. I've decided I'm going to plant my 3 rows up the hill vertically, but each plant row is going to be on contour, and that way they're shorter contours, so I don't need a tractor, I'll do it by hand, and they're only 5 meters long, each vegetable row between the tree rows. And I think that way it's going to help retain the moisture, because what I have found, I've been here 7 years, and I found last year at the bottom of my property is very rich soil, and at the top it's depleted, even though I've had compost and I've had vegetable gardens and whatever, it's all run down the hill. But I wasn't doing the on contour plantings, and I do believe that that will help stop that erosion, but it's not a major, like I wouldn't use a tractor, because 5 meters, you know, there's not a lot of maneuverability. So that's an ongoing thing, but it may help, Richie.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting setup. And then you just be very careful on the rows of trees, since they're going uphill, to make sure that that part is very well covered in with organic matter and with a cover crop. And then one thing that I was going to add, when you are on a slope, one very important thing is the way you organize organic matter, right? So for example, if I have a log that I'm going to lay, or a bunch of straw or whatever it is, you want to organize the organic matter on contour lines. So if my hill is going this way and I have a log that I'm going to place on the hill, I'm going to place it like this, right? Because then when water falls here, it's going to be directed sideways as it lands on the log, and it's going to go sideways, so you greatly reduce the speed of water. So all of the organic matter that is long, of course, you can't do that with leaves, but with branches, logs, and straw, you can just lay them like how do you call it, like on contour lines, right? Because that's gonna make the water spread sideways and you can reduce erosion pretty much 100% by having the soil well covered like that. So that's another point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice one, Richie. Nice to meet you there, mate.
Nice to meet you guys too. I've watched a lot of your videos. Much appreciation for your work.
Thank you, man. Well, thanks for joining
around
us
here. You want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you're from and what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm in Costa Rica. I have a hectare of land I got about 8 months ago with a house on it. And it had a fair amount of fruit trees on it, bananas, plantains, some avocado, mangoes, but still plenty of space to plant. And it's on a hill, and it's kind of slopes all around it down, not too steep, but steep enough. And so I've just done, you know, for the last few months, just planted a lot of syntropic rows, just, you know, on contour, with about 4 meters in between, you know, and just filled it in with fruit trees and bananas and a lot of Mexican sunflower, boton de oro, and some yucca, papaya, things like that. I didn't I know what you guys usually do is you till the soil and then you work in some organic matter and then plant everything, all at once. But I didn't do it that way, especially because it was trickier being on a slope to bring in a lot of material and all that. So I just basically planted the fruit trees, like 3 or 4 meters apart and then filled in between with individual plantings. So not a lot of real, and dug, dug the hole for each plant and added some compost and stuff like that. But I didn't, in between, I'm just planting sticks of cuttings and things like that. But I do want to put in more sow more seeds. So I'm not sure exactly the best way to build up the organic matter. I don't want to plant directly on the grass that's in between, all the planting. So I want to, I don't know, mulch or somehow suppress the existing grass and then fill it in with, legume seeds and things like that. I'm not sure the best way to do that. There are a lot of trees around, like little trees that have been pruned over the years that I can get a lot of organic matter from. And I started, pruning those and lining, just mulching in between my fruit trees that way. And maybe I can build that enough to the point where I can start planting in there. I'm not sure if you guys have any suggestions for my backward way of doing it, planting fruit trees first and then tilling the soil or creating soil.
Well, it sounds fantastic. I mean, you're getting on with it. That's the main thing. So it sounds fantastic. When you do plant a tree seedling, you have an opportunity to plant things around that bed, that
Right.
individual nest. You've made a hole for that tree seedling. So that's an opportunity to seed a few things there, that can maybe go ahead and cover the soil, start working, things like the black velvet beans and things like pumpkins, squash, a few things that can, already start working the soil, that, seeds that come off that tree bed that you've planted. Maybe you haven't prepared, a whole bed, but you've got an opportunity there to seed a few things. You could seed your pigeon peas next to your tree, which will generate organic matter on the spot.
Right.
So you can actually, make good use of that hole that you've made for that tree. So I mean, when you do go ahead and do it, try and make it a nice chunky hole that you can plant the tree in the center and other stuff around it as well. So you make like little islands, and from that island you can spread things from there. And I appreciate how difficult it can be to bring that organic matter. But soon, if you've been planting bananas and you've been planting some like Mexican sunflowers, soon you'll be chopping and dropping, just on the spot. And that's going to be the great thing about it. It's great. It's great. The Mexican sunflowers is great. Obviously, you want to have a certain level of control over it. I don't know how crazy you're prepared to go, if you're going to let it flower and just spread so you can have, so you can go Mexican sunflower frenzy. But, so it's something that you work out what your plan is as well. But the Mexican sunflowers, they could be a strong ally as well, And as you chop and drop, you start building, those horizontal lines that's gonna, help with the erosion and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. This is great to take the opportunity to use the nest of the trees that you added compost to add some faster growing crop, and then. I actually think for smaller systems, the idea of only preparing, if you're doing like manual work, if you're not using a tractor or anything, I actually like better the idea of planting in nests, because that way you reduce the risk of erosion on a slope, right? Because the more you move the soil, the higher the risk of, if you prepare a bed today and you have torrential rain overnight, you might. I've lost a field of beans once because I prepared the soil, and it wasn't such a steep slope, but I prepared the soil, and it rained so much that the water washed away my seeds to the bottom of the field. So if you planted nests, you can do a work of covering those nests very nicely. And then one thing that I was going to add, use a lot of species that don't require soil preparation. So, for me, two of the main ones are pigeon pea and black velvet beans. And they don't mind too much grass around. Pigeon pea will sprout in the middle of the grass. It's going to be very skinny and weak in the beginning, but as soon as it manages to put its head above the foliage of the grass, it takes up, it builds up its canopy. So it's something that you can do on the edges of your rows that you did in contours. You can just, with a small hole, you just open up like these 5 centimeters. You prepare these 5 centimeters little nests just to put in some seeds of pigeon pea and black velvet beans, and that's going to go a long way to be producing organic matter. They will help with suppressing the grass on that spot because they will open up a small canopy and they end up shading out the grass. The grass starts dying out a little bit in that situation. So this is also something that you can experiment with.
Sounds good.
I think something else that we could talk about is, where you've planted your tree seedling, it's a fruit tree or whatever tree it is, it's worth adding some other tree seeds around, to give a bit of stimulation for that tree that's a bit lonely there. If it's another tree, a few meters away. So, a few tree seeds as well. Maybe some real fast growing seeds like moringas. Maybe that particular tree that you've planted is something that's, for 7, 8 years from now, 5, 6, 7 years from now. And the moringas, if you got a couple of moringa seeds there within 1 year, you've got yourself a big tree that is going to nurture, your future tree. We already give you a nice canopy, already, some lovely material if you've got any animals for animal feed, and then you're producing moringa seeds, lovely pods. So I think in moringas, it's been a real ally of mine of, seeding next to other trees that are for the future, because moringas will come in next year. It's already a nice big tree and that will nurture. And it's not a very dense canopy initially. So it still leaves a lot of light in, like a half shade, half light. So it looks after that maybe that tree seedling that is for a medium term, medium to long term harvest. So also enriching that hole with some future trees, with some legumes, with some spreading stuff, some squash, maybe some tomato seedlings already produce a bit of veg around that. We do this quite a lot, when we have the opportunity to prepare in tree, nests, take the opportunity to make that your vegetable bed, that just that square. And then if you want, you just make it nice, a little bit bigger, something like 50 by 50. And then you can do a lot in that kind of spot.
So if you had a fruit tree and you put some moringa seeds around it and some of them really took off, like how close to the fruit tree can they be without competing? Like how many centimeters away can another tree be from your original fruit tree?
Yeah, sure. I'm not really concerned about the trunk, how close they are. I mean, for me, they're going to be just cooperating in terms of sharing and benefiting one another. All the fungi, all the information that's happening around the roots. A faster growing tree is going to come and break up the soil and guide the next one. It's really a case of the space, the aerial space that the canopy is occupying. What you wouldn't want is, two trees that grow in the same speed with the same kind of shaped canopy, and then they're going to be clashing. But right. If, could be stuck next to each other. But if the moringa is occupying this canopy and you've got your fruit tree under here, occupying another layer, like in height wise, if the canopies are not competing, it's not a problem how close they are in the trunk. You see, so, and again, is a tree that's on top is nurturing, it's helping, it's giving condition for the younger one. In many ways, in stimulation, we see it a lot where a tree, if it needs to grow, sometimes it will play catch up with the one that's grown just in front. So it's stimulating it to grow. It's a healthy competition, right? Giving it that half shade, protecting it from heavy rains, protecting it from hot sun, protecting it from heavy winds. So really someone to nurture the tree that you want in the medium future. So it's really okay to have trees very close together. We're just being careful that they're not occupying the same space at the same time, you know.
The same strata, the same height.
Sure, yeah, at that time.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. Cool.
And it gives you a better chance because say that tree seedling, you planted a tree here and another one in 3 meters from now. For some reason, that tree's not felt comfortable here in this condition. And then you're left with nothing, you know, you've waited all your life, like, you know, you wasted years and then you got no results. And it's like, why didn't, you know, so you want to have some competition. You want to, you know, give an opportunity for the chosen ones. So it's fine for us to choose the species that we want, but you know, you need to have a plan B, addition as well, a little bit of, you know, someone to nurture it and things like that. So you need to bring a little bit more biodiversity around that. You do it through the vegetable crops on its feet, you do it through faster growing trees on top, you know, you do it through all of these things that we've just mentioned.
Yeah, the big we have an expression in Portuguese which is pulo do gato, which it means the cat's jump. And then what it means, like, it's the trick. You know, the big trick of agroforestry is to manage canopies. I think I could say that, right, Gennaro? So one of the big tricks is to manage canopies. You have to understand where each species, where it's best fit to be, you know, to occupy a space with its canopy, and you're going to manage that throughout time. So why can I plant so many species together? Because one, I'm not going to be afraid of thinning them out in the future, because I can have 3 young moringa plants really close to each other, and they're not going to be fighting for space because they're still small. As they grow, each needs more space, right? So it's much like ourselves, right? Three siblings can grow together living in the same room until they're about 4 years old. After 4 years old, if you leave them in the same room, you know, things start breaking. So you have to start moving them separately. But then with trees, we just thin them out, right? We're not going to be moving trees around because that's, you know, it's part of their cycle to grow, and then you just cut them back and they're going to be fed back to the soil. It's kind of the same idea. You know, they can be growing there in the same room, but at some point, some of them are going to have to be gone, and then you're going to choose the best one. So it's all about managing these canopies, which is done by both thinning out species and pruning to maintain smaller canopies. So think about an old mango tree that has never been pruned. It can occupy a huge area as big as a house, you know, like 100 square meters, 200 square meters, one mango tree. But when pruned properly, each of them is going to have a pretty small canopy. And then in the same area that you had one mango tree, you can have 4, 5, 6, 7 mango trees. Or you can have one mango tree, one avocado, one guayabana, one lychee, or you can have a composition of plants that occupy the same strata. And the same goes for the service species. I can have like one eucalyptus tree that occupies a huge area, or I can have many eucalyptus trees that occupy, that are pruned and have a thin canopy. So it's all about managing that. You know, the species that occupy the higher stratums, you raise their skirts, like we like to say, you know, take out their bottom branches, stimulate them to go up and open their canopy up on top of your citrus, on top of your mango, on top of your bananas or whatever it is, right? So that's kind of, but then you have species, fruit species that are the tall and emergent stratum. So for example, papaya needs to be on top of the world. So the papaya will naturally grow upward and you know, kind of drop down the bottom leaves and try to occupy that stratum on top of the citrus, on top of the banana. So that's kind of the idea that you have to work with.
And when planting on high density, this is what it's all about. Like Felipe is saying, when you plant it on high density, you have the power of choice in the future. It's a great problem to have when you have, you know, at very low cost. Already you planted the seedling at very low cost. If you add some seeds, and then you got a good problem. If you have a problem in the future where there's too many trees occupying it, it's a good problem to have. You can choose.
Exactly.
You know, it's better than you didn't plant and now you've only got that one tree. And if that tree didn't go well, but then you got no one now. You know, horse. I mean, I train horses and, you know, a little bit of horse competition. And we say, if you have one horse, you have no horse. If you have two horses, you have one. You know, because if you have one horse and then it goes injured just before the competition, you're left with nothing. So, you know, if you have one tree, you know, maybe you got no trees. You know, if I got 5, 6 trees, then I know I have a tree. I know I'm going to have a tree here. If I got 5 or 6 of them competing, I might not know which one on when the time comes, but we'd love to have the option of choice as time moves on, and we can see who's occupying it. Out of these ones here, which one is looking to be more thriving, which one's looking to be more healthy, which one adapted better, and then you can, you know, bring them down and obviously feedback to the soil. So they've just cooperated with the whole system from the beginning.
It's the crisis of abundance. In pasture management, we talk about the 2 crises that people who work with cattle have. They have the crisis of scarcity and the crisis of abundance. And the crisis of abundance, it's actually a lot harder to deal with. You've got more. You need to make more choices when you have abundance. And that's not very easy to do, actually, because you have to choose, you have to let go of some things. And so I think that's one of the reasons that people sometimes prefer to have scarcity, because it gives them less choices to make, you know. So people prefer to have a horrible pasture. And I've heard people complaining, you know, farmers who start working with agroforestry, what am I going to do with all this organic matter? I said, well, we're going to put it on the soil. What am I going to do with all these species? Can I transplant it somewhere else? No, you cut it off and you just lay it on the soil. You don't have to transplant it. You know, that's the beauty of planting by seed. It's very cheap. You can just cut it off, and it's not something expensive. But of course, when you plant a seedling, people get attached to it because they open up a big hole, they prepare, they brought manure, they cared for the seedling in the nursery for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then they planted it. It takes a while to put a seed. You just get it from the tree, stick it on the soil, and that's that. And then you just
still appreciate
later.
The seed still appreciates a lot of love. You know, often it's not like we're saying you can throw seeds just on grass. You still need to give it a nest and things. But since you've done it already for your seedling, you've done it already for you, you've prepared it, make good use of that area that you prepared for your expensive tree seedling, and fill in the seeds there. Put it where there is care, and then you will get results from those seeds.
That's exactly it.
I mean, right now, I've gone ahead. I've got a couple of hectares down on a slope as it goes, and some cows went loose, and I had no irrigation, so a lot of things have failed. So I've gone ahead now and replanted on where some of my stuff had failed. And just so you can have an idea, on a 50 by 50 by 50 bed, I planted a banana. I planted an avocado, which you know, the avocado seeds germinate really well, so I should have an avocado there in all of them. I've planted a few macadamia seeds. I planted moringas. I planted papayas. Then I planted all the pigeon peas and jack beans and things like that. You know, and then I've planted another 15 different varieties of all noble wood by seed. So think of the level of confusion. And then I've planted these things like a meter away from each other, repeating this recipe like every other meter. So think of the level of confusion we've created. Really, I know what I want. I want the avocado or the macadamias. I want the avocado or the macadamias. But if by any chance over here I don't have an avocado, I don't have a macadamia, I'm going to have something else. I know this. And you know, and I know my avocado, my macadamias for 5-6 years from now. So I hope I have moringas or papayas or bananas before then. Or bananas I know I'm gonna have as well because they germinate, you know, they sprout really well. But you know, I'm hoping I have some nice bit of banana as well for organic matter, a bit of fruit to you know, to irrigate in the drought. But I know what I want. I want so I'm willing to sacrifice everything that's planted there for me to have, you know, either the chosen macadamia or the chosen avocados. This is the crop I want, macadamia or avocado. So between them, I'm going to see in each hole which one went better. But, you know, until then, have other options, other things going on, you know, and a backup plan. If it doesn't germinate, my macadamia, if my avocado, you know, if a dog comes over and steps on my avocado, I'm not going to be left with nothing, you know.
Hope it makes sense and helps you out, man.
It's for sure it does. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Nice. And the both of you, Jill, as well. I'd love to see, you know, the images of your progress, you know, maybe next time, bring us some photos and then, you know, whatever, send it to us or we share the screen, something like that. I'd love to see the progress on both of your plots.
Sure.
We visualize it and we can discuss it further.
Yeah, the hectare I have was originally like a 20-hectare cattle ranch. So it's planted with a lot of cattle grass, but I only bought a hectare that had the original house, so it had a lot of plantings around it already. But the hillsides are kind of, there's grass there, but it's kind of scraggly. It's not, I mean, we cut it and we rake it onto our tree rows, but it's not much. I'm trying to decide what to put in the rows in between on these slopes, you know, that I can produce some other food. Like I said, the rows are 4 meters apart on contour, and I'm not generating a lot of mulch in these in between spaces. So I'm trying to figure out what to put in there. I got a bunch of little cutting, a bunch of Mombasa grass. Somebody told me it was Mombasa grass. I got some clumps, and we're gonna break it up into little planting pieces and plant that in there. I don't know if there's any better suggestion about what to put in between my existing fruit tree rows.
Oh, you can definitely add the Mombasa grass and
Yeah.
pigeon pea. Definitely
Okay.
pigeon pea.
Okay.
With the grass
In between,
and whatever
yeah.
other other legumes you can get your hands up. Because like
Black
I said,
velvet
pigeon
beans
pea
again.
will grow. Yeah, they will grow in the middle of the grass. You know, if you can plant them, you know, wait 1 or 2 days for them to begin the germination process, and then you mow your grass and leave the mulch on top, just to give it a bit of a head start, so that when they sprout, the grass is short, right? So that they can try to grow with the grass. That's an idea that you can work with, and it will make your grass grow better. So it's gonna improve the quality, the quantity of the grass, and you're gonna have an additional source of organic matter. This is something that I would recommend.
Pigeon pea, you just put a little hole in the ground and stick them in an inch deep?
Just a little hole, just a little hole.
Each seed, and how far apart for the seeds for pigeon pea?
Like 50 centimeters.
50 centimeters
Yeah,
apart?
in the
You
row,
might-
but then you can have rows every meter, let's say, something like that.
Okay.
You might want to do like a line, you know, if you have
Exactly.
like preparing, you know, you're on your contour and then you have your tree every 4 meters from height. You might want to dig a line, you know, a line only 20 centimeters. You might want to fluff a whole line going across, and you can put a whole load of crazy cocktail seeds there, like, you know, like the pigeon peas and the black velvet beans, and you even plant some Mombasa on that line and some, you know, Mexican sunflowers. So you might want to do a line, just, you know,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
20
And then you can
centimeter
do only
line
only one line right in between, right? To make it,
Okay.
because if you do, I was thinking originally to have like multiple, like 3 or 4 lines, 3 lines in between each rows of trees. but then you're gonna have the problem of mowing the grass without cutting these plants. So if you have only one row right in between each 2 rows of trees, you're still gonna have like 2 meters of grass,
Right.
and it's easy for you to mow it and rake it to one side or the other, but it's still gonna have like this cocktail of green manures that Gennaro is saying is gonna have a huge positive impact on the growth of the grass and on the organic matter production. So,
and it doesn't take much labor, you know, to fluff off
Exactly.
like a 20 line, you know. It's not like you need a tractor or anything
Right.
special. You know, just with a whole pair 20 centimeters line going across in between your tree rows. And
exactly.
do a nice cook legumes there. And
Exactly.
you can even go ahead and plant things like leucaenas and moringas and little, you know, legume trees as well. You know, you never know, it might pick up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, I'm just gonna grab a glass of water. Just give me 1 sec.
Nice, nice. Well, thanks for showing up, Richie. So you've been following our videos you followed the course and a few things like that.
Yes, yeah, I've watched many of your videos, absolutely. And there's a few people around in my neighborhood here who have recommended you guys, and quite a few syntropic neighbors that I got around here. So I've learned a bunch from them too. Yeah.
We've got one of our friends, which is a patron, Jack. He actually asked the first question on today. He's not here, but he's in Costa Rica, and we've been working closely with him for over a year now. He's got goat system, so he's designing, you know, lines of trees for the goats and stuff like that.
Okay.
There's lots, and you know, there's a lot of people doing things out there. It's great.
Absolutely, a lot of consciousness out here in this area, for sure.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And the soil's not so good. It's kind of clay, you know, a lot of clay, but
it's good. We adapt. We adapt. Whatever it is, we adapt.
yeah. Yeah.
And we answered your beginning. So after we post this video on YouTube, you go ahead and listen to that. You know, we had answered it, you know, as a simple answer, you know, for your original question. So rewatch the video after.
Oh, so some of what I missed.
Yeah. Some, because we when you logged on, we just finished answering your question. Actually.
Okay, sorry, I had a worker out there.
It's all right.
I have a worker.
No, that's
go
all right.
ahead after it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why we like to have it recorded. And
Sure.
actually, usually we broadcast it directly to YouTube, so it's automatically recorded to YouTube. But today we had some problems. I got a bit late, and so we couldn't set up the broadcast, like the streaming, in time. So what we're doing, we're recording. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna start uploading it to YouTube, and it's gonna be available there for other people to see it.
So
Right.
what is, I'm not clear of the exact format here. Do anybody ask questions, or you have a pre-planned, is it about answering questions of
It's
the,
about
We're happy.
answering questions.
okay,
Yeah.
We're happy.
okay,
What we usually do
Often-
is when we're live in YouTube, the idea is to answer questions from the Patreon community. So that's why we post the link to the Zoom meeting a few days before, and then we ask people to leave their questions. So you can ask whatever you want, just leave your questions. We're gonna answer them. But also the idea of doing it live with you guys on video is also to give people who are not on the Patreon community to see the questions being answered, and also for you guys to join in and comment and, you know, do follow-up questions, and so that we can actually have a discussion going. So that's pretty much the idea.
okay.
For
I
us,
do
it's
have a-
great to get to know you guys as well, you know, the people that support us and interact, and actually be able to, you know, help you out in a deeper level once you show up, and then we can interact on any further questions. Because that's what we really want to see people have results. So, you know, we know when you show up and you can interact, maybe we can help you on a deeper level. So it's up to you guys as well to be participating. And for us, it's a pleasure to have you guys around.
Great. I do have another question if you're ready for that.
Let's roll.
Definitely,
Let's
man.
do it.
Shoot it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I saw one of your videos and it was about you know, kind of starting in a new area, starting a new project, and it was dealing with some of the local trees that were already there, and it was like just cutting them back, you know, about eye level or so they'll sprout, so you'll have more material when they grow back. But then about organizing that material, you got the leaves, and then you got the skinny branches, and then you got the thicker wood. And I wasn't clear about actually putting the wood all over the ground also as mulch. And I'm just wondering, because I have a lot of little trees around that were, some of them were kind of ornamental and different species that are just spread out throughout this property here. And a lot of them can be chopped, and they have been chopped before. And I want to use them for mulch now. I'm just wondering the best way to organize that material. Do you like leave the branches and let the leaves die and fall off, or do you strip the leaves separate? If you have any recommendations about how to exactly to deal with the chopping and before you mulch, use it for mulch.
Yeah,
I have just a simple idea. Just to I'm gonna let Gennaro talk about the wood, and I'm just gonna talk quickly about one of the thinner branches. I like to separate it into two main categories of material. You can separate into more. The more you separate into categories, the easier it will be for you to. Actually, I usually do three categories. One, it's a very thin material, like stuff that you can rake, right? So first you've got stuff that you can rake, right? So like stuff that's already partially decomposed, leaves and that kind of stuff. That's one material. But I don't separate leaves from branches, okay? I just get leaves that maybe they're already on the soil, or leaves that fell off. These I put it in a separate material, right? Litter from the soil, let's say. And then when I prune a tree, I will separate what can be cut by a sharp machete in one blow. So whatever you can chop off in one blow with a machete, that goes to one side. As soon as it needs two blows to be cut, that's already wood. It's thick enough to go into the wood material. So what I usually do is I get the tree, I prune it down, I get the machete, I just go chopping it all up, you know, and making a pile out of that. And then the thicker stuff, I leave it aside, and I organize it differently. The wood, because then the thicker material needs to be in close contact with the soil. The thinner material can be either covering the wood or be covering another part of the soil. And then I want Gennaro to talk about the wood, because I like the practical way that you think about wood, Gennaro, and I think that's a pretty cool, you know, when organizing.
Yeah. So since you said that, often, you know, if it's a nice straight tree, you know, which often it's not if they're scattered around, you know. But when they're nice, you know, if you plant eucalyptus for organic matter and things, and you got all these nice straight eucalyptus, sometimes you cut them in its foot, and if it's very nice and straight, you can just lie along, you know, along your tree rows and things like that, you know, because I try as well be economically, you know, viable with too much labor. So if it's nice and straight and organized, you can layer all in once, okay? That's not how often we see it, but sometimes it's how we have to be practical about it. But it is important that we have this variety of material, and it is valuable, just so we can understand it's different fungi and different micro, you know, flora that decomposes trunks of wood, and that decomposes thin stalks and leaves. So you need to have a variety. So it's very valuable to have the thick trunks and then the leaves and things like that as well, because you attract, you know, more varieties of the fungus. So, you know, the important thing is to have the wood in close contact with the soil. Okay, you could break it up into chunks of 40 centimeters, 50 centimeters, lay them one after the other, and you can fill that in the corridors and have it as a pathway, so you're actually walking on it and you're actually not compacting the soil. So you can actually, that's the classic way would be, you know, cut them up into 40 centimeters, and fill in this wood in the pathways. So you actually have a raised pathway. This is classic. You have it in between vegetable beds or in between tree beds, but what you would want is to have your thicker material underneath, your thick logs, and then the leaves and short branches covering it. If you organizing it all in one spot, obviously you can choose to take one material that way or one material here, but often you wouldn't put logs on top of leaves. You wouldn't put, your thin stalks and your leaves and then put logs on top. No, you put it, the logs underneath and have it covering, your leaves covering your logs. And then you can go back to that and lift that log and see, all that fungus working, all the tree roots already feeding off that log. It's amazing. Always neat, So, so the thicker logs underneath. Does that clarify a few things?
Sure, yeah. So everything would go in your tree rows.
Yeah, often you have to split up your wood. Often you have to split up your wood, as it bends and as it turns, because you want to organize this. You want to have it in contact with the soil. The more, the better. You don't want to have wood going up onto the air. So, sometimes if you got, all curvy wood, it means you should chop it up into bigger bits. Sometimes, like I said, if it's a nice straight wood and you can afford to just lay it all down at once because it's all in contact with the soil, if you can get away with that, great. Lay it all down in one go if you're short for labor and things like that. But this could dictate as well how finely you need to chop up these trunks. You don't have trunks going up into the air because it's suddenly bent. So you need to chop it up to make sure all your thick logs are in close contact with the soil.
Okay. Great. That's very helpful. And, you hear about people saying, well, if you're going to mulch a tree, you should leave, like a couple of inches, like 2 inches, like free around it. You might damage or rot the trunk. I mean, do you guys take that into consideration, or do you just throw pile stuff right up
different
against the trunk?
species? Different species could be, more fragile than others. But, generally we want to keep it close enough so that, sunlight is not coming in. When I relate to like vegetable seedlings, if you open it and you leave an open area, that's where it needs to be shaded to protect the roots. So, often you need to bring that organic matter back in and kind of close that gap, because if the sunlight is coming in and it's hitting exactly where that root is, well, then it's not really helping that seedling there, so eventually there is a species which doesn't appreciate so much humidity and things like that. That could be a case, but we're not so concerned. We like to bring it nice and close. And this is a point, so when you said initially to put all the organic matter in the tree beds, I would say initially in the tree beds, and then next time you cut, or as you have opportunities to have more organic matter, you can expand that, right? And so you can expand that as the tree canopy expands as well. If we appreciate that, often the tree roots has gone as far as the canopy or the leaves, so if your leaf canopies are here and the tip of your root is roughly where your canopy is, so this is where you should be mulching by now. You should expand your mulching as your tree canopy expands as well, ideally, because then there's not going to be so much necessity from you mulching always in the center. If your canopy is already far out, your roots are bound to be far out and it's absorbing more energy from the tips of the roots. So you start close when the tree seedlings pass, you expand your mulching, to keep up with the canopy. But it's all to do with how much mulch you have. I mean, because if you have enough, you mulch the whole thing. If it's appropriate. But if you don't have enough, you start nearby and you expand that as the years go by.
Okay. Good answer.
No.
Mhm.
Cool, guys. I think we can start wrapping it up, right, Gennaro? If you guys have
Yeah,
any other
brilliant.
questions, of course, we're glad to answer.
I guess one other question I would have was like, I think you mentioned pigeon peas and black velvet beans. You know, like where can I get those? I mean, an agricultural store will have that. Like typically, are they?
Well,
I mean,
Here in
Often,
Brazil,
often,
we
haven't heard
have
them.
special we have companies that are specialized in selling seeds of forage species. You know, forage species, green manure, and we buy them from the internet and they ship it
Okay.
to mail. That's one way. You can get it from
Okay.
other farmers who might have it. Over there, you're gonna have to do some research to see what where you can get those. But you're probably gonna find them on the internet.
Okay.
yes, it's all about a little bit of your local knowledge and a little bit of your networking with the people that are doing the same kind of things. So the people need to support each other on this, and you guys hit backward and forward. We've got Jack as well in our community. I don't know if you can get hold of Jack through the Patreon, because he's in
Okay.
Costa Rica. He could tip you off on
No,
a few things.
he's in Ecuador. He's in Ecuador.
Oh, Ecuador. All right.
Isn't it?
So-
Yeah, Jack is in Ecuador. Yeah.
All right. Yes, of course. Oh, yes.
But
of
you know
course.
who might be able to help you out with that? There is this friend of ours called Matthew Reese. He's got this channel called What's Ripening.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so he's from Florida, but I think he's got some business in Costa Rica. So you can probably, send him a message in YouTube and maybe he can help you out with that.
And this is the point. I
Okay,
mean,
I'll do that. Thank
a
you.
lot of it, often when we can't find it, we resort to things like eBay and popular sites, and
Right,
maybe you
okay.
can a little bit, but then you can propaganda this. And the beautiful thing about it is sometimes you get some of these like these nitrogen fixing beans and things like that, and then you can actually propagate them and you can actually become sell that, become like a special something
Exactly.
that adds to my income. Every time I plant a field of jack beans, I go ahead and harvest that, and next thing you know, they're quite valuable, and then I'm announcing it on WhatsApp groups, so people from the local community, they buy it. If I was to put it on eBay and things like that, it would sell as well. So it's highly valuable crops as well. So it's beautiful when your service crops becomes also a side income. So sometimes it's initially difficult to get that genetics in, but once you've got it, you can harvest those seeds and make it available to other people.
Great. Okay, thank you for that.
All right, but it is a little bit, you do have to do your research, and that's part of the building, year by year, you're building your network and building the friends, getting to know more people that are doing the same things, and then everyone supporting each other, and that's part of the maturity and the experience behind it.
Okay.
Exactly. That's it.
Nice. All right, so it's been great having you both here. Thanks for all our viewers as well. Maybe on YouTube, hit that like button. Yeah, that's nice. For anyone
thanks a lot, Richie. It's been a pleasure meeting you, man. I hope to see you again more often. Jill, it's been a pleasure seeing you again, and we'll see each other very soon again. This month, since we were a bit late with the Q&A this month, we're gonna have it again in the end of October, probably in the last Saturday, right, Gennaro? But we're gonna let you know. So start gathering your questions right away, so that by the end of the month you've got a bunch of them, so that we can answer.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right, guys. So have a great one. Have a great weekend. Have a great month. And we wish you good plantings, and we hope to see progress soon, and your forests really taking over and growing beautifully.
Great. Thanks for everything. Great information. Much appreciated.
Brilliant. Take care, guys.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
See you next time,
Bye.
viewers as well. Bye-bye.